Hello, BookTube. I'm back with more Bankrupt Bookseller. And as you can see, I found a home for Edgar. And he can look over my shoulder while I read. Yeah, that'll be fine. And when I made space for him there, I found my trowel, sort of a fitting spot for him, where my trowel was. Now I got to find, well, I could probably just stick it in behind him. Uh, if I could do that. Yeah, there he is. Oops. There. Both sitting nicely. So now we're up to shop windows in the Bankrupt Bookseller. My shop looks across the street along which traffic roars and subsides during the long hours. But on the far side of that street there are trees, and they nod a blessing on my venture. They have put forth the green leaves of hope, and my spring and their spring are one. The first I thought them too old to care, but now I know they are not indifferent. After all, we have a common ancestry and a common destiny, and they feel there is room for us, both green trees and greenhorn, together in the communion and the commerce of things. On either side of my shop door I have a window. My windows are not large. No bookseller wants large windows. He offers infinite riches in little room. My neighbor, who is a ladies' draper, has great glittering sheets of glass, but I hardly dare look into the windows. There is to me a lack of reticence on his displays of the intimate. I could not be a draper purveying not one necessity of the soul. My windows are small, and some would dress them, as they call it. I would not dress windows. There are no trimmings wanted for books. I am fond of color, but I am not sure I am wholly in love with the jacket which the new publishers wrap around their books. Some jackets I like. Some, indeed, I have cut out and pasted into the book. So fine, so pretty have I thought them, but my more usual feeling is for the naked truth, just plain cloth and plain lettering. Oh, I moved up some dust when I put them up there. Some would put pencils and playing cards among the books in the shop window, but I would not even if I kept such things. I do not bother about the stationery trade. I am an auxiliary of progress. I am a proud bookseller. My windows show the backs of the books close against the glass. Shelf rises above shelf to the top where the blind used to be and where the blind roller still is. The other day, dusting the top row of the books in the window, I found several spiders. I was glad to give them such security as they have between the old blind roller and the window top. I have always liked spiders. It was the story of the Bruce, perhaps, that endeared them to me early in life, and then Fabry has shown them to be more than ever deserving of human admiration and pity. Pity, of course, they must be accorded through heaven, though heaven knows we want all our pity for ourselves. We're not self-pity such a narrow, melting, soul-sapping potion. Anyway, I am not something of a businessman. No, let me start that again. Anyway, I am now something of a businessman, and though the role does not become my fancied idea of myself, yet I am tempted to remember Pope's lines, and quote, "The spider's touch, how exquisite fine, feels at each thread the lives along the line." That's me, in my new calling, responsive to anything that stirs me. What an excellent sign for a bookseller, the sign of the spider. But I daren't do that. I have shocked commerce enough already by changing my yellow-painted number of 47 to the lettered way of writing it. I have it 47 in words. Am I not a man of letters rather than an arithmetician? And no, sorry, let's start again. Am I not a man of letters rather an arithmetician? What would my neighbors say if I outraged any other canon of commerce? I cannot imagine. What would my customers think? I care not to prophesy. The spiders will stay. I alone among humanity know of their presence, and their plans for the flies are safe in my keeping. The thoughtless would have cleared them out, but I am not thoughtless. Bookselling is a thoughtful affair. and mere cleanliness is, after all, next to godliness. We booksellers, I have already said, have little to do with those who are next door, and those who are merely next to godliness are too far away for us to take into our cognizance. I remember a bookseller who always hung a book in his window on a card on which was written the book of the week. That was, to my mind, a poor service that he did our profession, even if he sold hundreds. That notice declared the ephemerality of books, and that it is unforgivable, and that is the unforgivable sin. How many books have been condemned as books of the week, only to find that the judgment day for them was not yet really come? No bookseller ought to pronounce a sentence, and that is nothing if not a sentence of death. That book of the week may indeed be the brain of the lifetime, and generations yet unborn will assuredly read it, if only to know that strange books are read in this, our year of great grace. For me, I will have no labels or tickets or cards, and only once I tempted to lure trade in this fashion. I prepared a card and printed it in my best characters, these words: a book, not for a day, but for all time. For all that, I never used that card. I saw it was sentenced to, and heaven forbid that I should be a judge of anyone or anything, let alone a judge of books. I would not make any book, if I could, the wandering Jew of literature. So there they are, my shop windows, not too clean for too brilliantly polished. They do not afford a reflection for my neighbors' customers, who can see their figures reflected as they pass my door. I cannot serve them with books, so I hold the mirror up to what is nature and their self-assuring glances of admiration. The bookseller, I hope, is always a gentleman, and most chivalrous and gallant at that. Next section, doubts. The London Mercury is good to booksellers. It believes ours to be a worthy profession, and I get pride from its pages. Without pride, I am naked in the world. In the issue which I have just been reading, there is a note of Ellis of 29 Bond Street, West 1. This bookshop has attained its bicentenary, but it is eclipsed in years of honorable trade by Bows and Bows of 1 Trinity Street, Cambridge. Its history can be traced back, says the Mercury writer, to 1581. I write it all out of sheer egotism and preoccupation. I dally with the bicentenary of other bookshops. My problem is, will I last not 2 centuries, but 2 years? Next section, the shop door. The door is an all-important feature in any building, and the door into a bookseller's shop is no mean portal. Mine is an ordinary door, and winter and summer it is always open. Sometimes I stick a publisher's announcement on it, but as often as not I let the glass remain unobscured. The door itself I swing back, and it is held in place by a brick which I have covered first in newspaper and then in strong brown paper. Nothing is unimportant. Everything has significance, and it is significant, although the significance eludes me that my shop door should be held back by this brick, first wrapped in printed paper and covered again with brown paper. The door is held back thus, and those who pass by on the pavement are thereby permitted, when they deign to look, to see a sight, not for sore eyes perhaps, but a sight worthy of a second glance. If such passerby halts in his progress and steers across the wide pavement, he will find he must rise to the world to enter. He will find he must rise in the world to enter. That, too, is significant. To enter a bookseller's is indeed an elevation of mental station, but it is an elevation which is not for the host, but for the elect. There is one step at my door, and I learn that in other places that one step has become a fashion. My shop has over 100 years ahead of that fashion, however, for dignified men of generation now gone and designated forever as Victorian. Did one step ever my entrance before such a simple movement and one itself a modern name? Having raised themselves in the world by taking the new step, my customers are now on my level and they can enter. Shuffling or striding as they will or can, but it is at the door I leave them for the present. I do not ever go forward to greet customer. The play is the thing and not the actor. The books are all important and not the seller of books. I hate those modern shops which employ shop walkers. The name always suggests the squalor of the street walkers without the romantic color of their calling. Who pounce on one as one enters the shop? Who are the men who do this work? How are they caught and trained for such a calling? What service do they think they render as they escort their charges to counters where mincing minxes demand again one's wants? I would have none of them, and I would not attempt in my shop the faintest, most remote imitation of them. My shop door is no mouth of a mousetrap. Free come, free go is my way, and if I am poor in consequence, my conscience is lighter by the thought that none ever brought from me for any better reason than he wanted to buy and could not find what he wanted for himself. But my shop door has other implications than those which are associated with those who come to look at my books and perchance to buy. It is the entrance into my shop, after all. I am not one of those cosmopolitan merchants who want the public to make a rendezvous of their shops. My place of business is first mine. It does not belong to all the world, and I have felt more than once that I might some day, in some towering rage of anger, take the whip of knotted cords and lash the unbelievers from my door. My customers have their entrances, but they have too their exits, and even the most wearing go at last. Then, and I am often glad of that closing hour, the shop door gives itself exclusively to my hands, I who unlock it with hope when the day's business is over, close it with calm contentment. It is my shop door in the morning, and when the evening is come, it is mine again, to guard my books until I believe its vigil with the coming of the new day. And next section is, the future. A customer has been a regular buyer of the Today and Tomorrow series by Kegan Paul. He commented with Wireless Possibilities by Professor A.M. Lowe and bought in succession for £0.50 apiece Icarus, or the Future of Science, and Tantalus, or the Future of Man. He then bought Daedalus, or Science and the Future by J.B.S. Haldane. He has surfaced apparently today. He does not like the future anymore. He toyed with books such as those from the Oxford Press, The Legacy of Greece, The Legacy of Rome, and The Legacy of the Middle Ages. He toyed with them, but bought none. I was serving when he went out, and he handed me a card, one of my shop postcards, on which he had written, "Now is all we know." The observation is original as far as I know, but the thought behind it led me to two books. The first is a modern symposium, the best thing Lowes Dickinson has done. There I find the passage quite easily, though I read the book before the war. There I got Cantaloupe's expression of feeling, which seemed to follow on the reputation of the future, which has made the afternoon. Cantaloupe reminds one of Baldwin, a little though Baldwin, in 1905, was still a man of business rather than a man of politics. He is made to say in his Apologia for Toryism, "I am a Tory not because of any opinions I hold, but because that is my character. The England that is will last my time. The England that is to be does not interest me." My edition is published by Brimley, Johnson, and Ince, but oddly enough was printed in America. And after cantaloupe, let us have lamb. The pun is resisted. Here, Charles Lamb, quote, I care not to be carried with the tide that smoothly bears human life eternity. I am in love with this green earth, the face of town and country, the unspeakable rural solitudes, the sweet security of the streets. I would set up my tabernacle here. I am content to stand at the age to which I am arrived. I and my friends to be no younger, no richer, no handsomer. End quote. Who would want a future who could find so much joy in the present as Charles Lamb? His joy in life, however, transmitted to us through his essays, has given him a future he never imagined. The discovery of the future by H.G. Wells has a considerable sale to me. Looking Backward by Bellamy has not been so good lately, but I still recommend a modern utopia and even News from Nowhere. Now, however, the architects of the future, with plans complete, are our rulers. Even the short-lived among us may hope to see the New Jerusalem, quote, in England green and pleasant land. I wonder. Palestine looks a more likely sight after all. Thank you, BookTube.